Hello and welcome to Farm Journal Live. I'm editor Clinton Griffiths in the Farm Journal newsroom here in northern Indiana. Of course, we're continuing to keep you updated on the latest with the coronavirus outbreak and its potential impacts in agriculture. Today, let's get to some of the latest news and some of the big headlines making news today. U.S. health officials continuing to monitor the coronavirus outbreak. U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams saying, quote, "This is going to be the hardest and saddest week of most Americans' lives," comparing it to Pearl Harbor and 9/11, as he expects the outbreak to impact most of the country this week. Meanwhile, stock markets feeling somewhat hopeful early on, up 1,000 points today on optimism in Europe, Italy, and even in New York. Cattle are mixed, corn is down, but wheat higher today. And let's bring in Josh Tonzager. He's the VP in Policy Communications for National Association of Wheat Growers. And Josh, we did have some cold weather in wheat country over the weekend, but wheat really one of the commodities hanging tough right now, price-wise, since this coronavirus outbreak began.
Yeah, that's right. And thanks for the opportunity to be on. I think that there's been a lot of different unique implications of the coronavirus on ag commodity markets. We've actually seen quite a bit of fluctuation over the last few months, but ultimately, though, the futures prices for wheat, they've been more along the lines of what they were prior to coronavirus first being reported in China. But as I said, though, we've still seen quite a bit of fluctuation over the last few months, though.
You know, one of the things we've seen are these images at grocery stores of, you know, the bread aisle being sold out and people really going and finding kind of those staples of their diet. Have you been able to put your arms around or kind of quantify the demand for wheat right now?
So we've been definitely taking a deep dive into that. We've been talking with our members, with our state associations, as well as with other components of the value chain, with the milling companies and the bakers. What we've been able to gather is that, you know, demand for bread and pasta consumption has been at least 50% higher than this time last year. And we've also seen significant demand for all-purpose flour just for at-home use. And we're going to expect that that's going to continue for a while as well.
You know, Josh, one of the things that came out of Washington, it's been about 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago that they passed that bill, that the CARES Act that we're hoping may have some impact and help some farmers out that are in tough situations across farm country. But we don't know any details yet. On your end, what's the National Association of Wheat Growers doing to kind of help move that ball forward?
So there were several different pieces that were included in the CARES Act. Of course, there were some provisions that were specifically for the Department of Agriculture. The CARES Act provided about another $23 to $24 billion for USDA to have quite a bit of discretion with how to help farmers during this time. In addition to that, there were also some programs through the Small Business Administration that we've been exploring too, and their applicability to farmers to help cover payroll costs and rent and mortgage during this time right now. So there's a number of different things that are at play, and I think that there's still going to be potentially some more opportunity as well for Congress to provide some additional resources. But right now, we're still working with our state associations and with our farmer members to really identify what the immediate needs are. So then we're sharing that information with the Department of Agriculture as well.
Yeah, I guess as we continue to watch how this thing develops, we'll continue to check back in and see how things are going from a perspective of the wheat grower. Good to hear about that demand out there at the grocery store. I know our wheat farmers out in farm country are doing their best to get this crop all the way to maturity, Josh.
Right, absolutely, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right, appreciate it. One thing we have gotten from USDA is we are getting quite a bit of field work. Today, we will get our first official crop progress report from USDA. And as we bring in Chip Flory with AgriTalk, Chip, this weather isn't perfect, but at least in our area, we've been able to see that some field work weather has been better than previous years.
Yeah.
At least better than last year.
Yeah, definitely better than last year. And we are seeing some anhydrous go down in eastern Iowa. It's a little ahead of schedule when you look at the past few years, and guys are even talking about sticking some beans in the ground this week. So it's moving along. It's that time of the year, man. It's time to go if we can go.
Chip, you heard Josh talk about some of that wheat demand, and we've seen demand at grocery stores in ways that we haven't really seen in quite a while. Your impression on the way that our markets are reacting? Are there too much global implications to this right now for commodities to find a lot of support?
Well, I think one of the things that's also helping the wheat market out is the fact that you've got Kazakhstan Russia, looking at limiting their exports of grains and including wheat and milling quality wheat. It, to Josh's credit and Nog's credit, we're we're proving once again that the U.S. is a reliable supplier of milling quality wheat. Um, hopefully, when this is all done, the countries that are stepping in and importing some U.S. milling quality wheat are not going to forget that we were there when other countries were limiting the exports and the availability of the product coming out of their country, and proving our reliability again. I think it's really important, and I think that is helping this wheat market out some too.
You know, Chip, one of the things we continue to watch, of course, is the livestock industry. The U.S. Meat Export Federation releasing its February numbers. Now, that's before this COVID-19 outbreak really started in earnest and was impacting people beyond China. USMEF saying U.S. pork exports posted the third largest month on record in February, while U.S. beef exports also recorded double-digit gains from a year ago. Pork exports up 46% from a year ago. Beef exports seeing some outstanding growth in February as well, 18%. Chip, this livestock market is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, especially given some of the challenges at our processing plants around the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh was talking about demand for wheat and wheat products at the grocery level. But when you look at what is happening at the food service level, where we're not seeing hamburger buns used as much, we're not seeing rolls, the dinner rolls, and everything that go along with a nice evening out. Uh, it's being amplified, I think, in the dairy markets. It's being amplified in the beef and in the pork markets. And one of the things that we've always been concerned about, Clinton, is what happens if the coronavirus gets into the employees of one of them, one of the major pork processing or cattle processing facilities around the country. What does that do to the markets overall? Well, Tyson has announced that they are closing the Columbus Junction, Iowa plant now at least for this week. There are anecdotal reports that because of a greatly reduced number of employees that are showing up for work, that they're having to slow down the kill lines. Things are getting backed up in this livestock industry in a way that's going to be difficult for us to overcome. And I'm not exactly sure how we do overcome all this going forward. So there's some issues in this livestock industry that I think are going to come to light this week. And then, of course, the food service side of things for dairy in particular, just trying to, I know that those plants are working as furiously as they possibly can to get things converted over so that they can put more milk in jugs or in bags and get away from the food service items that are out there. But boy, it's going to be a tough week for a lot of dairymen out there when they get there's going to be a lot more milk dumping this week is what it looks like.
Well, and there will be, and I think some of the frustration that we're seeing, and I'm getting notes into the office here from people outside saying that, don't work in the ag industry, saying, hey, our supermarket's sold out, they've got limits on the amount of milk that we can sell. Why is this even happening? And part of that is we're trying to hot change the entire food system here, like in midstream, and it just doesn't happen overnight. And it's going to take a while to retool some of those things and try to figure them out. That's why egg prices are up. That's why we're having the same issue in meats. I mean, to rework the entire way when we're eating 50% of our meals outside the home, to completely rework it takes time.
Absolutely, it takes time, and that's what we're trying to adjust to. I think that is, for the dairy industry in particular, that's the thing. That is what is causing the major supply chain disruption that we're into right now. And of course, they've got to measure and weigh the risks of going all the way over to jug milk instead of pint cardboard containers, going all the way over to jug milk. And then what happens if all of a sudden it's, hey, we've got this under control, let's get back to normal and get the kids back in school?
I know.
the balancing act that's going to take place here, Clinton, to no fault of their own, there's going to be too many people that get it wrong. And we're going to shoot too far to one side, so that when we start to come back, we're going to go through a lot of this again, where we're going to be trying to make changes on the fly.
Well, and you do feel bad for the dairy producers having to dump milk, right? For the dairy industry and the beef industry and the pork industry, and places where they're having trouble getting the product that they know they've got available to the right places right now. You do feel bad for those parts of the market, because they are feeling that softening in prices, and now we're worried we may see that in some of our livestock industry this week, Chip.
Well, real quick, one of the most telling things here is that we're rendering bellies now. I mean,
right.
How the bacon market was so dependent on that food service side. I talked about it last week on AgriTalk, how bacon had become a condiment in many ways. And now that we're eating at home, maybe we don't take the time to go ahead and fry up a couple of strips of bacon for a burger. But when you're going out to eat, of course, throw some bacon on that burger.
Right.
This when we're rendering bellies, boy, if we can find a way to turn that side of the market around first, that'll go a long ways towards helping out this hog situation.
Well, Chip, it is unprecedented times, and it seems like, over the last few years, we keep saying, this is historic. We're in the middle of something historic here, whether it be trade deals or what have you.
Dude, that was prep work.
Yeah, 2019, the flooding and the prevent plant issue that we saw. And here we are again, standing on the edge of another historic year, Chip. It's just, there's a lot to cover here, a lot to keep up with, and hopefully, the folks watching at home are, taking care of themselves and their families and continuing to keep the work going.
That's priority one right there.
Absolutely. Chip, thank you as always. Appreciate you. We'll be back again tomorrow and see what we can do. Of course, Chip will be on AgriTalk this afternoon and again every day this week talking about all of these issues. We'll be back with Farm Journal Live later this week. And if you'd like to keep up with our coverage, you can find that at agweb.com/coronavirus. Again, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Thanks for joining us for Farm Journal Live.